54% of Americans say that their mood fluctuates with the number that they see on the scale. And even though I don't live in America anymore, I have not fallen away from that kind of mindset. This survey was done by Him and Hers, which is a report from The Shape of America. I'll link it in the show notes, but I would say the number probably increases a lot more for women in general, and probably not just Americans. Since I have lived in Europe, I have noticed so many different changes in the way that people eat, exercise, treat their bodies. It's just drastically different than how Americans do. And in this episode of Cageless today, I want to discuss the differences between Europeans' point of view when it comes to weight loss and body image and Americans. And because we live in the age of the internet, I'm still very much connected to American culture and pop culture trends and the way that people are manipulating their bodies to the point of major plastic surgery and even extreme medications. If you're listening and you haven't subscribed on YouTube, which 98% of the people who have watched these videos have not subscribed yet. So please subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please follow along and subscribe there. It would help me so much, and you can keep up with different episodes that come out, all the new content, all the new ideas. I would really appreciate it. Now onwards to the topic of the day, body image and weight loss. What really sparked this was a post that I saw from Teffy. I think I said her name right. She's a pretty famous TikToker who also does cultural commentary. I think she does interviews on red carpets, but she makes some really funny content, but she also makes really great points specifically about the way that we perceive ourselves and how other people view other people through the media. And she made this post. I'll read it, but I'll also post it right here, that says, "You want achievement, accolades, beauty, and thinness because you think this makes you safe from abandonment. You think you don't have to be vulnerable if you're already desirable. You're only confident when you feel small and then feel bitter when he doesn't see you for what you are. Take up space. Asphyxiate. Did I say that right? The room. They will leave if they want to leave. Take up the whole room. Laugh loudly, whole mouth, head to the sky." Since I've moved to Europe, I also moved here after I left rehab for anorexia in America. I obviously came here with a rose-colored glasses view of French women, European women in general, and how much more free they seem and open, and they aren't known to color their hair a lot and wear a ton of makeup and alter their bodies for the traditional patriarchal male gaze. But I actually recently learned that France was the one that popularized corsets. In the 16th century, the Queen of France was often credited. Some people say they actually blamed her for making tightly laced corsets fashionable in the French society because she wanted to ban thick waist. So really, corsets were more of a function of control, which I kind of think weight and women's perceptions from themselves and other people have always been about control. Because you look at the Renaissance, bigger bodies meant more wealth, more extravagant things, and now we call that curvy, but only are you accepted if your waist is still small. You see that the rules continue to change really no matter where you are in the world, but especially now because of the internet. There is not even really an ideal body at this very moment. You can look at, and I'm going to say some specific names here just for example, not because I hate these people or I think that these women are bad or inherently evil. They're just what I come up with in the moment from my particular analysis and research. But you look at a supermodel like Bella Hadid. Supermodels have always been looked at by people in the media as the ideal person because of the way that they are paid and desired by people at large. You look at her sister Gigi Hadid or Kendall Jenner, which is kind of a a different topic, the Jenners and the Kardashians, but you look at the typical supermodel physique that kind of started in the earlier 2000s of being very thin and frail and tall and very ballerina-esque, which if you're not born that way is almost impossible to achieve and extremely unhealthy to aim towards. And then later on, as time happens, the Kardashians were a huge part of the renaissance toward being curvy. But if you're curvy, you also have to be thin, and then your butt has to be a certain size. And there's just really no winning. But now something that I am starting to see, and I'm sure a lot of other people are as well, is the rise of Ozempic, but also the rise of protein and like bulking up culture. Because I think for a few years, the clean girl aesthetic of like the Pilates body being thin, but also with some muscle tone, having a lot of control over what you eat, the kind of organic products that you can use, from your skincare to your hair care to the things that you put in your body. It's all a sign of status and a sign of your worth, but it's also a huge indicator of wealth. And I think that all of these trends come down to those two things, wealth and control. Even like in today, or I think it was yesterday, I saw that Kylie Jenner had commented back to a fan about her boob job and the exact incision that she got, the doctor that she used, the size, the everything. And I don't really think that it's a favor or like a helpful thing to tell someone the exact beauty procedure that you got. Obviously, it's so she can look more like her or be more appealing to the media and the male gaze at large. But I also think that it's kind of just a reversal of celebrity culture trying to go into influencer culture and like content creation culture, because being on the internet when you're scrolling all day, there's a difference between entertainment and education. And I think that we are at a point in time where, yes, we want this authenticity and this realness with our content, but also at the same time, celebrities are starting to look like fantasies. If you've seen facelifts that have been happening, the use of Ozempic and how unrealistic these people look, they almost look like cartoon characters. They're so quote unquote perfect. I really don't think that Kylie, who is a huge idea of beauty, she runs a huge beauty line. She's a part of the Jenner Kardashian clan that has been a massive influence on the way that women want to look and want to see themselves as being desired. I really don't think that giving advice about how people have manipulated their bodies is doing any good for anyone. I'm also sure that you have noticed that there is a specific facial type and structure now that is considered to be more desirable or acceptable. And you go back a little bit further in time, 20, 30 years ago, even actresses and models, people that were the epitome of acceptance and beauty and fame and power and control, a lot of them looked different. And now everyone's kind of starting to look the same. And if you ask me, I've lived in the South of America, deep in the heart of Texas. I've lived in Hollywood. I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I've lived in Denver, Colorado during my 20s. And the only thing that I really ever noticed was the way that women speak about their bodies, not the way that they look. I think that culture has been adjusting itself around beauty standards everywhere, but the only real difference is what we say. You know, in Texas, it's a very passive aggressive nature of almost in like a gossip sense of, have you seen how this girl looks? Or, oh, I wish I could look like that. Or, you know, it's all kind of like passive and not very upfront when it comes to complimenting people or even insulting people. And then when you go to California, which is more of a metropolitan city, beauty is extremely praised and monetized there. It's the nature of the business of cinema and music and fashion and art. And it's almost this idolized entity similar to fame that no one can ever really seem to reach, but it's still talked about quite openly. And it's almost like, okay, there's no elephant in the room because we're all trying to get onto the elephant. And now that I live in Europe, I've actually had this discussion with different women from different cultures around the world, but specifically with French women. I used to really think that they were the core of confidence, that they were so sure of themselves, that they didn't try very hard, that they sought only confidence and approval from within. But I actually kind of think that that's the opposite now that I've lived here for a while. I used to think that French women were the most confident women in the world. But then the more I've learned about French culture, the more I have seen that external validation isn't important. It's about the internal judgment that they have for themselves. They judge everyone just as harshly as they judge themselves. But it's ironic because no one really gives a shit about anyone else but them. And so it's kind of a catch-22. Like, I have seen so many French people be very openly opinionated about the way that someone else looks or dresses or acts. And they are equally opinionated about themselves, but they aren't doing it in a way that's like mean. It's more of an insecurity that they have. Yet it's an insecurity that when the rest of the world looks at them or looks at French people, we kind of think that they're chic. We think that they're beautiful. We think that they have great taste because they do. If you've ever been to Paris or anywhere in France, you see how stunning and intricate, and there's a reason why the museums are the most beautiful in the world, and even the food is gorgeous and very aesthetically pleasing and attractive. But it's a very different kind of attractive than what America believes in, because we have been a culture for the past 10 years of maybe even more, but I'm 29, so it's only what I've been able to see, at least the past 10 years, of how can we make beauty a function of fakeness and a machine? How can we turn ourselves into these beauty enhanced robots? And what does that say about who we are in society? I don't think that these are new ideas. These are just ones that I have observed over the past few years living in Europe versus living in the United States. But I do think that the biggest difference is that American women are obsessed with how they look according to other people, and French women are obsessed with how they look according to themselves. So no, none of these ideals are new, and American culture did not invent beauty standards. They just digitalized it and learned to monetize it. It's extremely dangerous to be a woman in 2025 for a plethora of reasons. But more than anything, I think it's dangerous to fall into the kind of standards that are moving more towards manufactured fake robotics. And I don't want to be hypocritical here, because I am someone who dyes my hair. I'm someone who gets my nails done. I'm someone who has literally been hospitalized for mutilating her body in the name of control. And I think that it's also important not to blame yourself if you see yourself moving towards that kind of safety, because like what I read earlier, beauty standards keep you safe. They keep you in the box of safety and control of white men. And we still live in a world that white men run. And just like an animal in the wild, you're not going to try to challenge the ideas of a leader alone, because it's dangerous. I think that there are strength in numbers, and I think that there is strength in accepting yourself and knowing that who you are is not what you look like, and you should spend your money on things that make you happy outside of the validation of other people. The rules are going to keep changing, but you don't have to play the game anymore. The problem was never you. I really encourage you to let your body be your home and not a project, and let your beauty be something that you feel and not something that you prove. Wherever you are in the world, know that the grass isn't always greener. It might just be taller or shorter, and know that the Botox isn't any different. It might just be more or less expensive. Also, it's summer, and I would regret not saying it's a hard time of year for women in general, and wearing clothes that are a little bit more revealing also reveal insecurities that we've been told to have since we could walk. So please be kind to yourself. Don't study the scale in your bathroom. Don't stop yourself from eating or trying that ice cream. Wear the shorts, even if you don't like your legs. The people that are meant to love you will love you, and the people who judge you for the way that you look aren't your people in the first place. If you have had an experience with a beauty standard, or a beauty standard that you have had to unlearn the hard way, I would love to know it. Please comment below. Tell me what you've been through, or if there's anything else about beauty standards or body image that you think that we should discuss more. I think that it's a really important topic and something that I wish other people talked about on the internet as I was growing up. Thanks so much for listening. I love you guys. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you enjoy Cageless, please subscribe on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever streaming platform that you prefer. I would really appreciate it. And tune in next week, because we're also going to be talking about a topic that I'm super passionate about, and we will have a guest on to discuss this topic that I think you will absolutely love. So love you guys, and see you next time on Cageless.